Hello there, folks. Bonky Kook here, aka your Lonely Achievement God, continuing to bring you the Lawn Mowing Simulator coverage, although this is not specifically related to any achievement. In my challenge videos, I've been doing a lot of talk about my strategies that I use that helped me complete the expert mode challenges. And while I do talk about them in the challenges most of the time when I am doing them, there's not a real good time when you're in the middle of a challenge video to detail why you're doing that. So I'm going to make this video as kind of a general tips and tricks from beginners to expert players that I have some tips and tricks I think you should learn that'll help your journey towards the completion of the game a little bit easier. We're going to start with the basics. We're going to use a basic mowing contract, a basic litter contract, a basic striping contract, because the game doesn't tell you anything about striping contracts. And then we're going to go into some of the more challenging tips, such as the patented circles I use for using the string trimmer, how much grass to cut in one pass, and balancing how much grass you're cutting with the top speed of your mower, how to handle overloads properly. If you look at the timestamps below, I'm going to break this video up into multiple different sections where we cover all of those things. And hopefully, you know, if you don't need the beginner stuff, you can move on to the more difficult tips. Or if you need help at the start, you know, you can try to just follow along with the beginning stuff. And also, if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm always willing to help out if you need some help. So let's go ahead and get started here. Sorry about that. My controller fell over and changed the tab. But we're starting with the very first contract in the game because it's a very easy contract and it'll allow us to kind of go over the basics of the game very easily. So we're going to go ahead and start it. And we're going to be covering the basics of a regular mower contract. So as soon as you hop in, you get the ground check time phase, which is very similar to a litter contract, but a ground check is running around the lawn to make sure there aren't any objects on the lawn that if you run the mower with the mower, you'll cause damage to the mower and the item, and you want to make sure those items don't exist. So if real life, if you're ever mowing a lawn, not a bad idea to do a ground check. So we're going to do a ground check, and I recommend going into your settings, and I can't remember which one it's under. I think it's this next one. There it is, the sprint toggle. I recommend toggling it. That way you can go slow when you need to, but you can just tap the button to start running fast. So I don't recommend the always sprint. But so set your sprint to toggle, and then the right bumper allows you to sprint, as you can see there. So what I do for litter contracts is generally I run around the outside of the lawn just like we would if we're cutting. We run around the outside, and we're looking for objects to pick up. Now, when you get close to an object, you'll see a little notification pop up, a little icon. There we go. You see the little information icon pops up, and we can pick it up. And now in the upper right-hand corner, we have one of the 4 objects collected, and we still have 3.5 minutes to complete our ground check. So we're going to continue our lap around the outside, and we got 2 more objects. And now, just like with mowing, we're going to make a second lap, but it's going to be deeper inside the lawn. And there you go, we found our 4th object. We're done with the ground check. That's all you're going to be doing for ground checks throughout the game. And the same thing applies to litter contracts, although I'll have a separate video detailing the litter contracts. When you're done with your ground check, you can now start using the string trimmer. I recommend using the string trimmer before you mow. It'll make it a little bit easier on you. So we're going to grab our string trimmer. We are using the weakest one here. I believe this is a fuel mower or trimmer as well. And what we're going to do with the trimmer is we need to try to cut the grass up against these flower beds. Now you can see when we're not running the blades, you can actually kind of push the flowers out of the way before you cut them. That's something that you have to be going very slow to do. So we're going to go ahead and start running the trimmer. And as you can see, we can actually push into a flower before we destroy it. There we go. We did destroy it. But you're going to want to go along the left, and you're kind of going to want to angle yourself. Be it like a 45-degree angle as you move along the dirt. If you go at this angle, sometimes it feels like the perspective is weird, so if you're not careful, you may miss the grass that's at the far end of your trimmer. And if you're running like this, when you get into the bushes, as you can see there, we can't see where we're cutting. So kind of a 45-degree angle is a good perspective for a lot of the trimming. Now, this isn't always going to be possible. There are going to be some sections where you're going to have to be sideways or running straight along. But for the most part, I recommend staying at a 45-degree angle like this and running along the lawn. The other technique with string trimmers is the circle technique. So you've seen me do this in challenges if you've watched any of the videos. But we do quick circles around. And when we do the circles and use our Pro View to check, you see we got all of the grass there. Now, I do it at a lot faster speed here. But as you can see, we got virtually all of the grass around. Now, it's never going to be perfect, but the fact of the matter is, it's much faster than trying to do this. You go around once, and then you start a second lap around. And it takes a lot more time to do consecutive laps for string trimming than it does to do my circles. So to do my circles, what I recommend doing is just starting in the middle, and you want to make quick circles. And when you're going to the right, you go further right than you have. So you're making oblong circles. I know that last bit wasn't very good, but you kind of start like that, and then you go a little bit further, and you go a little bit further, and you go a little bit further. And you want to get used to doing it consecutively. It's actually screwing me up that I'm doing it so slowly. You want tight circles that go all the way across. And you're going to leave maybe a little bit of grass behind once you get good. But as you can see, look at how much of the grass we got there. We got almost all of it across that little section that we were doing the circles. So I do recommend practicing this, because especially on the expert level, you'll see me use this a lot, and it saves you time. Obviously, practice is important for all of this stuff in relation to getting to the expert level. And then when you get to the expert level, you're also going to have to learn to be able to do these flower beds in sprint mode. So if I'm walking right now, you can kind of tell I'm going slower. You have to learn for some of the expert challenges to do it in sprint mode, and you can see I have a higher speed now. So I recommend practicing this when you can, especially on the in-game career mode challenges. Once you get into like amateur and professional level challenges specifically, you can kind of take things at your own pace. You don't have to rush too much, but on expert level, it is important that you begin to learn how to cut at a quick pace without destroying all of the flowers. Now, some flower beds just aren't built for being done quickly. So again, that's kind of an experience thing. The more you cut, the more likely you're going to be able to do this properly. The more experience you have doing it, obviously, the more you can do the thing. If you have any questions about that stuff, feel free to let me know. I'm actually going to quit out and come back in here because it makes no sense for us to try to get the mowing stuff done and complete the contract in the same time frame. So that kind of covers the basics of using the string trimmer. Ooh, the other thing. Okay, one more thing with the string trimmer, and this isn't a great contract for it, but when you drive a mower into like this wooden lattice here, that's doorway, you'll take damage. The mower will get damaged. You'll be penalized for hitting something with your mower. But if you use the string trimmer, you can get your string trimmer all up in that and not get penalized for it. This is going to be very important for some of the professional and expert level challenges where hitting a statue or the bandstand or a fountain is basically an instant fail. You're going to want to be using your string trimmer to get near the objects that cause you to fail from collision damage and use my patented circles to get around them, because the string trimmer doesn't cause any damage to solid objects that aren't flowers and bushes. There aren't a lot of solid objects on this level, but some of the expert challenges do have objects that you literally touching them once with your mower will fail you. So you have to get good at using your string trimmer to edge those objects so that when you start mowing, you're not in danger of running into them. And with that said, I'm going to quit back out and pop back in so we can focus on the mowing basics. Okay, folks, welcome back. We have used the string trimmer to clear out the lawn, and we are ready to start using our mower. So we're going to get on our vehicle here. The first thing we need to do is hold the X button. That'll start up the engine. After the engine starts, hit right on the D-pad to increase the throttle so you can start driving it. You can press the Y button to change your perspective. I prefer cutting in first-person mode, but there's like 5 or 6 different positions, and there are instances where you're going to want to change your perspective depending on what you're doing. I find it very useful to get into first-person mode, for example, when edging close to things, whereas when I'm doing, say, a striping contract or using specific types of mowers that I don't like the front of, I'll switch to an overhead view. It is a personal preference. I do most of my mowing in first-person mode, but some people might want to do it in third-person, and that's perfectly fine too. Third-person has its advantages. You can use third-person mode to see better for backing up so that you don't run into things. In first-person mode, you don't have a good idea, where your back end is, so it can be difficult to back into and around things. So that's a personal preference here, but I will be showing off first-person mode. What you also need to keep in mind is we may have a cutting deck. Now, you can see I pressed the B button that lowered our cutting deck. You can't start cutting until your deck is lowered, but not every mower has a cutting deck, so the game will usually yell at you and tell you, if you have one, that you need to press the B button to lower the cutting deck. The other thing we need to keep in mind, as you can see down below there, is the cut height. We need to know what height we need to cut our grass to. So if you pause the game on this first tab here, it'll tell you our cut height range needs to be between 5 and 6 centimeters. What that means is we need to, when we're on the mower, and I'm going to move the view here, in the bottom right-hand corner you have your speedometer there. The speedometer has a cut height below it. Pressing down and up on the D-pad will change your cut height, and you need to get your cut height within the cut height range. So the contract needs the grass to be cut down between 5 and 6 centimeters. Currently, the grass range is between 13 and 20. That doesn't mean a whole lot, so don't worry about what the current grass range is. Generally speaking, it's not going to mean a whole lot to anyone. So the important part is knowing what you are cutting your grass down to so that you can set the mower height to that. The other thing this screen is very important for is the completion target. And you can see there at the very bottom, we need a 99.0% completion rate or target. That means we need to cut 99% of the grass. We have 1% that we can leave behind, and that's very forgiving. Most of the challenges, when you get to them, are going to require a 99.5 to 99.9% cut. So a 99% cut is a lot of grass to leave behind and still complete the challenge. So make sure you're aware of that before you start. In fact, it's not even a bad idea to check your completion target before you use the string trimmer as well. With that done, we're basically set to start mowing. Now, you can use right trigger to go forward. You can use left trigger to brake and go into reverse. I don't really use left trigger to brake much. Generally, I just rely on my mower, coasting to a stop. So brake is personal preference for usage. But what we're going to do is we're going to start cutting. And to do that, we need to engage the blades. You can see we have a notification there to press the X button. In the bottom left-hand corner of our screen, we have 3 little meters there. The vehicle condition is basically from running into things. So if you do that enough times, you can see that our vehicle condition bar went down. Engine condition goes down if you overload your engine, and we'll cover that in a little bit here. And our blade condition goes down the more we cut grass. If your blade condition goes down, you can actually get off the mower and replace them in the field. So what we can do is hold the B button. That stops the mower and gets us off. And you can see here that we can hold the B button and pay 50 currency to change our blades. We can hold X to fill our fuel. And if the mower is stuck on something, we can hold the Y button and it'll move it. And you can also get back on, and then we'll do the startup process again. But once you're ready to mow, you can hit the X button to start the blades and start running out. In the bottom right-hand corner here, we have a speedometer, and in the middle of the speedometer is our fuel meter. You don't have to worry about fuel too much in the regular career. After 2 or 3 contracts, you're going to want to fill the fuel up. And you can do that from your career menu, or you can do it, as I just shown you, in the middle of a contract. You can do that with the blades too. There is a maintenance menu in your career mode that allows you to do maintenance on all your mowers at any time at the menu, or you can take care of it out in the field if you need to. Generally, once your blade condition drops below 50%, you don't cut well, so don't let your blades fall below 50%. The engine and vehicle condition is really irrelevant unless you're ramming into everything at all times. For the most part, you don't have to worry about that too much. It does take general wear after every contract, but just keep an eye on it, and if you see that your vehicle is getting beat up, you can go and perform maintenance on it. In the career or challenge modes, you have to be careful of your engine condition. Overloading your engine too much can cause damage, and a certain amount of damage to your engine will fail you. But for the career mode, you don't have to worry about that stuff too much. And sorry about that, I went off topic. In the bottom right-hand corner, we have our speedometer. The speedometer will display your top speed right above the fuel gauge there. And the kind of grayish line there is your engine overload potential, how hard your engine is working. At the right side of it, you can see a red arrow. It's kind of hard to see where I'm standing right now, but there's a red arrow at the right side of our speedometer. And that's, I know I'm going to call it a speedometer, but really it's just the engine overload gauge. If you watch it when we drive out over the grass, you'll see that there's a white bar that goes up as we drive along the grass. And you'll notice it went over the red. When it goes red, immediately pull your finger off the trigger. For basic players, just stop mowing. Running your mower while it is overloading causes damage to the engine, and if you do it long enough without letting the engine stop overloading, your engine will stall and you'll have to restart it. I'm going to cover overloads in a separate little section, so I just wanted to show off that now. One of the keys to going through this game, and specifically the challenges, is keeping an eye on your mower and making sure you don't overload anything. The fuel gauge isn't quite as important. As I said, most of the mowers will allow you to do 2 or 3 contracts with a single fuel gauge, but you can always refill it when you're out in the field. And it does kind of bend inward towards the fuel can in the middle. So it's actually not, when it gets to the bottom left, empty. It actually has a little bit that it turns in towards the center before it goes completely empty. So just remember that when you're running around. The only other thing to really keep an eye on here is the upper right-hand corner. You can see your progress meter. we have 8.8%, and in the right below that is a kind of gold marker on the progress bar. That's a representation of how much grass you have to cut before you finish the contract. In this case, we know from pausing that we need a 99.0% cut percent. So we need to get to 99.0%, and when we do, the contract will automatically complete. The time will stop, and then we can return to our trailer and end the contract. We also have the timer in the upper right hand corner. Every contract in career mode gives you a recommended finish time. It's not really that big of a deal. I do think you get a bit of a penalty if you don't finish it in time, but it's not like an automatic fail if you don't finish the contract in the 26 minutes for this contract specifically. There is an achievement related to finishing 10 contracts within the recommended finish time. Once you start upgrading your mower, you'll unlock that before you even know what happened. The late game mowers are beastly, and being able to use them on some of the easier contracts will make that achievement simple. So don't worry about the recommended finish time too much. That is something you're going to have to pay attention to once you get to the challenge mode. But for career mode and for beginners who are starting out, you don't have to worry too much about the recommended finish time. And I think that's basic, or most of the basics covered here. There are a couple of options you can mess around with in the options screen, of course. You can change your units, speed units. You can change your field of view if you want to. Turn on or off vibration. There is a text size. I have terrible eyes, so I think this was just added with a recent update too. So the large text size is new. And then you can have some invert options. Your sprint toggle we already showed off. The strimmer toggle will just automatically run the string trimmer. I don't recommend having that on because of the danger of destroying flowers or something. I recommend keeping the strimmer off. And I think the dead zone is for attacking or hooking up a wheel to use your mower. So most of us will not have to deal with that. But those are the general options to worry about. And we're going to hop in here and start cutting. Now, I've already... I actually don't like the text size being that large, so we're going to go back. That's interesting. There we go. So what you're going to do for your cut speed, or your cutting, is you're going to start at a corner and work your way around. Now, for some of these early mowers, you need to figure out how far... how much along the edge your mower cuts. In first-person mode, I tend to use the most right portion of the front of the mower to figure out what I'm cutting with. You can, also switch into third-person mode. And in third-person mode, I would say that red dot there on the right side, I'm not sure what that is, if that's a shift or just a sticker there. That's a pretty good estimate to the edge of our blades. So when we're driving along here, we want to keep that right side right up against the edge of the grass that we may have already edged with the string trimmer. But again, you want to be careful when you're driving around because you don't want to run into any flowers. You don't want to ram into the lattice walkways there. So it's important to mow whatever way you're comfortable with. So in first-person mode, I kind of go by the front right wheel there. I feel like that's a pretty good estimate of where we're cutting. And we're just going to go all the way around the outside of the lawn. Now, if you have multiple sections of lawn, you can cut the sections up into smaller sections or cut the lawn into smaller sections and then work on the next section, etc. But you're always going to follow this kind of path around your lawn. Make an outside cut to kind of get away from the flowers so you don't have to worry about them. And once you make a lap around, you can start worrying less about running into the flowers and more about just focusing on cutting grass and not overloading your engine as you do so. So we're going to turn to the left here, and we've completed our first lap around. With that done, we're just going to start cutting. And we're going to continue doing this until we get into some flower beds. Now, on this contract, you don't have to worry about overloading your engine very much, especially with this mower, specifically because we drive so slowly too. So you're just going to keep cutting until you get to the point where you're close to a flower bed. So we're probably going to do one more lap, and then we'll come back and work on a flower bed. And this is what I call the optimal mowing path. Starting a lap around the outside and then working your way inward until there's no grass left. This is how you want to handle mowing, specifically if you intend to go through the challenge mode. You can go through the career mode doing whatever the heck you want, really. The career mode is designed to just, be stress-free and easy, and you can do whatever strategies you want. But if you're going to do the challenges, then you generally want to cut your lawns this way. Start with an outside lap, work your way in, and when you get to flower beds, edge them. So on this third lap here, we're going to focus on edging the flower bed on our way back around. And once we get over here, we're going to kind of take a little detour and just work our way around the flower bed. Now, you can cut with whatever side of the mower you're comfortable with. I tend to be... I can use both sides, and it's something you're probably going to have to get used to doing in order to complete the expert mode. There are just points where you're going to have to cut with the left side and then the right side. But as far as contracts in career mode go, again, you're fairly stress-free here. And now that we have this section of grass separated, we're going to focus on this section of grass and then return to the other section, minimizing our travel. Once we get this section done, our laps will be shorter on the other section of lawn, and we won't have to spend as much time driving without mowing anything. And again, that's not all that important when you're going through the career mode, but it's a little tip you're going to want to pay attention to for getting through the expert mode. Or expert challenges, excuse me. So with this portion of the grass cut, we're going to return to our lawn. You may have noticed we got a penalty for turning too sharply. We damaged the ground. The penalty for doing that is almost non-existent. So don't worry too much about it. Unless you're constantly getting penalties about it, then you do need to figure out what you're doing when you turn that's causing you to damage the ground. Generally, if you're not going full speed when you're turning, you're not going to damage the ground. Or if you're at the very least, you only hold the turn for maybe a second or two. If you hold a turn for longer than a second, then you also exponentially increase the likelihood of you damaging the ground when you turn. So there we go. We got another lap under the belt. And from this point on, this is basically all we're going to do. We're going to make our laps around. And continue cutting until we get to the next flower bed. I'm not going to finish this cut. I just wanted to kind of show off the general idea of what the optimal path for mowing is. For those of you that are just starting. I mean, you can just go off crazily running through the center of the lawn if you want to in career mode, but for those of you that are interested in getting the completion, learning how to do the optimal path is very important. So we're going to make our way around one more time to do the second flower bed, and then I'm going to call it good for now. And we'll move on to the next technique, which will be, I think we'll be doing litter contracts next. But as you can see, we're getting quite close to this flower bed, so when we get to the other side here, we're just going to start making our cut around the flower bed with the left side of our mower. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a second lap around here. So that we get all of the grass on this side done. Turn around when you do, and then just kind of make your way back around and rejoin the lap. And now you can continue cutting. And we're going to do the same thing with this flower bed, and that will be it. And again, we'll do a second lap around. To make sure we get all of the excess grass. And now with everything cut, it just really is a matter of continuing your laps until there isn't any grass left. And I've decided to just finish out the contract. We're already at 80%. I could have paused and gone away for a bit, but there's no real need to. We'll just finish it off. It'll only take another minute or two. Okay, it'll probably take closer to 3 to 4 minutes, but still. With this section separated by some of our earlier, maneuvering, I'm going to go ahead and finish this section off as well. Again, breaking the lawns up into sections not only can help you feel like you're making progress, but it also allows you to focus on a certain area. If we were to keep trying to make our laps around, when we got over to here, there would be a section of grass we were crossing that we didn't need to cut here. This would be a waste of time to keep driving over this section as we make our laps. So it's best to just focus on getting sections of the lawn done. And doing that optimizes our cutting. That way there's almost never a point where we're not cutting grass, which again, for the career mode and some of the earlier challenges isn't really that big of a deal, but once you get to the expert level, little things like that will add up if you are intending to pursue the challenges. And you saw things got a little dicey here, so we're going to use the Pro View to make sure we got all the grass. So if you hold the right bumper in, the right stick in, all of the uncut grass will flash at you as long as you aren't moving. Once you start moving, that effect goes away, and you can use that to see if you've missed any grass. So we missed a couple of spots, so we can just go and take care of that. Again, in the career mode, Only really useful for some of the darker contracts or where there are shadows. If it's, overcast or rainy out, then some of the grass can be difficult to see. But for the most part, not all that useful for career mode. Generally, you're going to want to use it in expert mode to make sure, like we just did, that we didn't leave any grass behind. Now, you may have noticed there I had to do a big turn. What I did is I only turned for like a second at a time. That way, and then I let the analog return to center. You can actually watch the steering wheel and see how I'm turning. That way you're not constantly steering, and there's a good chance, or a less of a chance, that you're going to damage the ground when you're turning. And there we go. We finished the contract 24 minutes and 11 seconds. That is under the 26-minute recommended finish time. And you can see how much grass we could have afforded to leave behind, and it's even more than that because I continued cutting a little bit after we completed the contract. When you reach the contract recommended cut or completion target, the clock stops, and you can do whatever you want for the rest of the contract. If you want to finish the rest of the grass, you can do so, or you can just go straight to your trailer and finish off. This is important to remember for challenges, because it used to be that the challenge didn't stop. The timer didn't stop until you drove onto the trailer, and they're actually very nice now. They updated it so that the contract timer stops when you reach the designated cut percent. Driving onto the trailer is more than likely going to result in you getting a small collision fine. So if you want to be perfect, and there is a challenge or an achievement for being perfect, you want to use third-person mode and back up onto the trailer to avoid getting penalized for ramming into it. When you're on top, all you need to do is hold the B button, and you'll get off the mower. And to finish the contract, you can run over to the driver's side of the truck and leave the location. You'll get a little pan of the contract, and then it'll bring you to the post-contract screen where it tells you all the individual little bits and pieces of your contract if you're in career mode. I'm not going to go into much detail here. I did a lot of that in my career mode walkthrough, although that is slightly outdated now, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to go back and readjust that. So there is still quality information in that, and if you have any problems with that walkthrough, reach out to me, but I'm not going to go over the post screen here. That's the basics of a mowing contract, folks. So that's our first real tip. We covered quite a few things along the course of this 38 minutes or so. And I'm going to jump away here, and we're going to come back with a litter contract next. Welcome back, folks. As you can see on the screen here, we have a litter contract prepared. This is not the first litter contract you're going to run into in the game, but it doesn't really matter. Every litter contract has the same basic idea, and you'll notice it's a litter contract from the career mode menu, because the money you receive for doing it will be significantly less than a mowing contract. As you can see, we have a litter contract there, which is one of the DLC contracts, but our mowing contract here is 615 currency, where both of our litter contracts are 40. For litter contracts, what you need to do is pop in and just assign an employee to take care of them, and we'll go ahead and start it. Litter contracts are very similar to the ground checks you do before a mowing contract, if you've done a mowing contract yet. All you need to do is run around and look for items on the ground, and we're going to follow the same basic premise we do for mowing. So what we're going to do is first go into options. If you haven't done this already, check to see what your sprint is. I do recommend having the toggle on, although for litter contracts, it's not a bad idea to just sprint nonstop. You need to know what your lawn looks like. So I know how this lawn looks. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here and we're just going to start running across the lawn looking for these information items or notices to pop up, because that indicates there's an item on the lawn. In the upper right hand corner, you'll notice we have 11 objects we need to collect, and we have a time limit in order to do so. Not sure why, but we do. So we need to run and find all 11 objects that are scattered across the lawn so that we don't run them over with the mower, which will damage our mower. I'm not actually sure if you're allowed to just start mowing and run over the objects, but in reality, you should do a lawn check before you mow so you don't run over anything. So as you can see, we're just running across this section of the grass, and we're going to keep going, and this will bring us all the way back to the beginning, and we'll get all of the outer sections of the lawns cleaned of litter here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to continue over here, and we're going to follow this little section of the lawn all the way around as well. And there were not any objects here, so we're going to get back to this lawn. What I recommend doing with wider lawns in a litter contract is doing the same thing as you would with an optimal mowing path. So start along an edge and work your way around. We're going to focus on this little fountain area first. I don't think there's anything, but once you make a lap around, make your lap smaller. So work your way inward and make another lap. And do that consistently, and you'll eventually wander over all sections of the ground. It is worth noting that some of these contracts have weird spots for litter. So occasionally they could be hidden like on the edge under a bush. 99% of the litter objects are out in the open on the lawn, but occasionally there has been one or two that, like that item there, it was difficult to see because it's under the bushes. It wasn't a litter item, but it can be hidden underneath bushes and shrubs and stuff like that. So you do have to keep a rather decent eye on under some of the bushes and stuff as you're going around the lawn. As you can see, we got everything. We've completed our litter contract, and we can go back to the van. But I do have a few more comments to make. Once you have made your lap around, if you still have more objects, then you make your lap smaller. So we'd focus on more the center of the lawn here. And we already went up and down the hill, so we turn around and focus more on this section. And we just keep doing that pattern over and over again until we've walked across every section of the lawn. And the only things you may have missed are some objects like I've mentioned that occasionally there can be something that gets spawned in right at the edge of the grass near some dirt, and with some of the bushes hanging over the edges, sometimes you can miss the object. So just be thorough when you're running around. Watch for that information item, and also just for anything colorful that's stuck in the middle of the lawn. And once your contract is complete, you can run back to the van and turn it in. And that's the basics of litter contracts and the ground check phase, really, as well. They're basically the same thing. You don't have any litter contracts in the challenges, so there's really not a whole lot to go over here. They're not going to have to get everything in a super fast time. There is a general time limit, but for the most part, in the litter contracts, the time limit is very easy to meet. So if you have any questions about litter contracts, feel free to reach out to me. But now I am going to send it over to another version of myself that will teach you how to do a striping contract. Hello, folks. We are looking at the basics of a striping contract, and as you can see here, we have the rear garden at Rowley Manor available. You can usually tell something is a striping contract if the RP value is insanely higher than the normal cut. Obviously, that comes about just from doing the contracts regularly. You'll notice the striping challenges give you a lot more RP than just a regular mow. Unless it's a DLC one, or this may be overgrown, but the rear garden at Raleigh Manor here is one of the simplest striping cuts to do. So we're going to go ahead and jump in and show you what you need to do. For a striping kit, you need to have a skag mower that has a stripe kit attached to it. So in order to do that, you need to go into your garage here. You need to purchase one of the skag mowers. And when you get inside, you can purchase the Tiger Stripe attachment and stick it on the mower. So you notice I actually unequipped it. So now we're going to equip it here. And that allows you to stripe in your contracts. So what we're going to do is assign ourselves to the striping contract. We're going to choose our skag mower. It does not matter what string trimmer you use. All of them... Well, for striping contracts, we don't use them. So there's no need to even have the string trimmer, but we're required to bring one along. So we're going to go ahead and jump in and start our striping contract, because the game doesn't do a great job of explaining what you need for striping contracts and how to handle them. So first off, we need to do a ground check, so let's just get that out of the way. We're going to do exactly what we've done before, although this one is pretty easy to see where the objects are. With that done, we'll return to the vehicle, and the basics of a striping contract are very similar to the basics of a mowing contract. You get on your mower, you're going to start it up and hit right on the D-pad to start the throttle, and you're going to drive down to the lawn. I recommend using this top-down view or this one. It's easiest to view the grass this way, and what I mean is we're going to get down here, and we need to press the right bumper and the X button. And as you'll see, these arrows have shown up on the lawn. The arrows are a guideline for the way the customer wants their lawn to be striped. Now, these are not an exact specification, and I'm going to prove that to you, because we're going to go, you see this arrow is pointing this way, and we're just going to line ourselves up along this. But before we start cutting, we need to go in and make sure what the cut height is. It's 550 to 650, and we do need to cut 99.5% of the grass. So what we're going to do is, just like in a mowing contract, we're going to get our cut height in between 550 and 650. So we'll need it at 630 there. And what we're going to do is, with this mower, make sure you know how far left and right your mower cuts. So for this mower, kind of the right side of the orange and the left side of the orange there is how wide our mower cuts. And we're going to want to cut at about an 80% clip. The arrows, again, are just a guideline. They are not exact. You don't have to be cutting the exact width of an arrow in the same direction of an arrow, and the game does not tell you that. As long as you are making your cuts relatively straight across and then alternating the direction of how you're cutting, you're going to do very well in a stripe cut. So let's go ahead and start driving across the lawn here. And you can see in the upper right hand corner, our stripe rating is actually higher than our progress bar. That sometimes happens right off the bat, especially if the grass height is uneven. So you can kind of tell as you get more to the center of the lawn that the grass gets higher and you're cutting more of it. Or if you overload your engine and leave grass behind, that can also cause your progress to fall below your stripe rating, but don't worry about it too much. You saw we got to the other end, and all we're going to do is kind of reorient ourselves, cutting with about 70 to 80% of the grass, and we're going to start making our way straight across again. And again, sorry about that, I bumped the analog. We are not following the arrows. All we are doing is alternating the direction each cut is being made. So we get to the other side, we turn around, we come across again. That's all you need to do for a stripe cut. All you're going to do is continue this all the way along the lawn until you have every bit of grass cut. And just keep an eye as I do this, how our stripe rating and our progress bar keep up with each other. Do be careful at the very edge. This lawn isn't very difficult to stripe. There's not a lot of objects at the end that can interfere with you turning around, but there are a couple of the striping contracts that you're mowing up against a house, and you can actually damage your stripes having to turn around at the edge of the lawn. So be cautious of that. This contract specifically isn't a good example of that. A couple of the challenges have houses that you have to turn around next to, and you just need to be careful when you're turning at the end. You need to minimize the amount of driving you're doing on the lawn that is not in the same orientation of the stripes you are making, if that makes sense. And for proof of that, let's say we couldn't drive all the way off the lawn here. We'd have to turn like this. And just driving that little bit in the wrong direction damaged our stripe rating. Make sure you get off the lawn completely, or as much as you can, when you turn around to do the next column. Because just turning, as you saw there, just driving that little bit damaged our stripe rating that much. And stripe rating is basically impossible to fix near the end of the challenge or contract because of how hard it is to kind of tell exactly where your stripes are after you've cut. You have a pretty good idea, but it's not very easy to go back and fix any of your stripes because of the invisibility of them. So what I recommend doing is if you do fall short of the stripe rating, I wouldn't recommend trying to go back through the lawn and fixing any of it. I do recommend just restarting the challenge if you don't reach the stripe rating. On the other hand, if you get to the end and your stripe rating is good enough but you've left grass behind, there is a way that you can go back and cut the grass without damaging your stripes very much. And I'll show you that when we get done with the contract. But you can kind of see I'm not going overly straight. I am making small adjustments as we drive across the lawn. And we're going to be within probably 99% stripe rating at the end of this contract. Generally, I almost never fall below 99% just following this same pattern for all of the striping contracts. The good news is that the expert challenge, I believe it's an expert challenge, that requires you to stripe up against a house. The stripe rating required is only 95%, so you do have a little bit of wiggle room there to mess up your stripes on the edges and still be fine. But as far as general cuts go, and career mode and even up to the expert level in the challenges, you're only going to need like a 90% stripe rating, which is what I believe we need for this as well. In fact, we may not even be judged on our stripe rating. We just may need to do stripes and get the lawn cut. So again, we're driving the exact wrong way on this arrow because the arrows don't really matter. The arrows are designed to just show the direction the customer wants the striping to go. So as long as you alternate your cuts in the general direction that the arrows are showing, that's how you complete a stripe challenge. And we're almost to the end here. Probably 2 more passes after this one and we'll be done. And there we go. We finished the cut. And we still have some grass left, so we're going to drive forward. And we got to a 99.9% stripe rating. That's practically perfect. I've never actually been able to get to 100% in my stripe rating, so I don't even know if it's possible. But on the off chance that you finished all of the grass and maybe you had struggles with some overloads or you were a little wonky with turning and you missed some patches of grass and you didn't reach the 99.5% cut requirement, all you need to do is drive next to the lawn and hit right bumper. This raises your stripe kit, and now you can drive on the lawn with very minimal damage to your stripe rating. I say minimal because there is a possibility that just by driving around that you can damage your stripe rating. I have dropped my stripe rating 0.1% by cleaning up some grass I had missed before. So it's not a perfect method of cleaning up after yourself at the end of a striping contract. But just by hitting the right bumper, you can bring your striping kit back up and just drive around on the lawn, cleaning up any grass you might have missed without damaging your stripe rating very much. Like I said, it may damage your stripe rating by 0.1%, but more than likely that's not going to be much of an issue. And just like the normal contracts, you can drive up onto the ramp if you're not worried about taking damage. You can drive straight on, or you can back onto the ramp if you want to be perfect, and you can walk over to the truck and leave the location, and that'll finish your contract. So if you have any questions about any of the litter contracts, any of the striping contracts, feel free to reach out to me. I will do my best to answer them. I am going to attach one more clip from one of the challenges of a striping contract where we do have to deal with the edges of a house, so that way you see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and attach that little section next and send it over to my other version of Bonky Kook. Hello there, folks, and coming back at you with the addition to our striping challenge. As you can see here, we have to come back along this lawn and be right up against kind of the steps up into the house back here, and there's not enough room for us to do that. So what I'm going to show you is how you want to deal with that. If you come across this in other, striping career mode challenges or whatever, we're going to drive across the lawn. We are on an expert challenge, so this is a little more difficult than anything you're probably going to experience in the career mode. But on our next pass back, we're going to need to turn to our right, but we don't really have the room to do so. So what we're going to do is hit right bumper, and that brings our striping kit up. And we're going to drive over here and kind of reposition ourselves. Don't back up too much because you can get stuck on the steps. And then drop the kit again and start your column. This allows you to continue cutting without damaging your stripe rating too much. And the same thing's going to be true over here. We're going to turn off the stripe kit. We're going to try to reposition ourselves as best we can. Then we're going to drop the kit and turn around again. That's how you need to deal with some of these close quarters striping. You need to be able to bring up your striping kit and then drop it again. And the same holds true when you're working on these trees over here. So we're going to line up with the tree and work our way across. And once we get over to here, we're going to drop the striping kit and drive to the other side and start our column again by replacing the striping kit and continuing across. And that's how you need to handle obstacles like that in the middle of the lawn. Drive up to the tree, raise the striping kit, continue on to the other side, replace yourself, and drop the kit again, and continue along the other side. Now, I didn't do that quite as smoothly as you're going to once you get through to the contracts. You can watch this specific expert challenge video on my channel if you want to learn more about how you do that in the midst of a contract. I just wanted to show you how this works in case you run into these situations in some of the career mode contracts and you're wondering why your stripe rating is going down. Well, having to drive along the edge here and cut grass will hurt your stripe rating. So just make sure that when you're turning like that, you manipulate your stripe roller up and down at the right time so that you can continue to stripe without damaging your rating too much. But that's all I got for you about striping contracts and challenges, folks. So if you have any questions for me, reach out to me. I'll do my best to answer them. But I'm going to send you over to whatever our next tip is. I have to figure out what order I'm going to put these in. Okay, folks, we have made it to the overload section of the tips and tricks guide. We're going to be covering what they are, what causes them, the reasons you should avoid them, how to deal with them, the 3 methods that I have for avoiding overloads, and how to clean up after them if you do overload your engine. So, overloads, to put simply, are you trying to cut more grass than your mower is capable of. Your engine is overloaded, your blades are overloaded, and you end up leaving grass behind. As a object lesson, we're going to drive forward here and watch our meter in the bottom right. When we look behind, you'll see that our meter had turned red. When you look behind, look at how much grass we missed. We were overloading our engine way too much. That's because we were trying to cut so much grass with such a difference in the current grass's height to what the contract wanted us to cut it to, that our engine just couldn't handle it. Now, there are many things that can cause them. I'm not going to go into every scenario, but the cut height of the grass requirement, the ability of your mower, the top speed of your mower, a lot of these can contribute to whether you're going to overload your engine. The fact of the matter is, just keep an eye on that gauge in the bottom right. You have that red arrow there, and whenever you're mowing, you take a quick glance down there to see how you're doing if you're close to overloading. When you do overload, there's an audio cue. The mower kind of downshifts. You can kind of hear it, that it slows down, and then the gauge turns red. So I do recommend listening for the audio cue first, because that'll indicate to you that you're really close to overloading, and then the meter will turn red. When the meter turns red, you immediately need to stop cutting. The reason is, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner there, our engine condition meter has dropped that far just by driving this little distance in a constant overload. And in the expert challenges and amateur challenges and, well, all of the challenges really, you have a limit to how much you can damage your engine. You're not going to run into this problem too much in the career mode. The career mode is rather relaxed, so engine damage isn't that big of a deal. But when you start your challenges, you need to learn how to handle your overloads so that you don't damage your engine. And what you can do is there are 3 separate methods that I use to deal with overloads. The first one is to just kind of turn off from the way you're cutting. So let's say we're working our way around the outside here and we start to overload our engine. What we're going to be doing is we get here and we just kind of, you see the meters start going up, so turn to the left so you're cutting less grass. That way you're still keeping your top speed, and you're continuing to cut, but you don't have to slow down or get off the lawn completely, and that saves you time. As I've drilled into a lot of these tips and tricks and challenge videos, Every second counts. So if you can continue driving and cutting instead of coming to a stop or whatever you need to do to deal with the overloads, that'll save you a few seconds down the road. So again, if you ever find yourself, the meter starts going up like crazy, just turn to the left and keep driving. How much you need to turn to the left is kind of, again, just an output of what mower you're using, how high the grass is, etc. But generally, it's not a bad idea to just, when you get overloaded, try to cut a little less grass. The other two methods are a lot simpler. The first one of the other two methods is literally just come to a stop. That's it. That's all there is to it. I recommend this method if you're not in a time challenge, or for example, if you're doing one of the field challenges, there's no time limit. So just come to a complete stop. Either take your finger off the accelerator completely or press the left trigger to try to help slow you down as well. You can do that in career mode as well when the time limit doesn't really mean anything. The other method, and this is the one you'll see me use a lot, is the tap the accelerator. This allows us to keep moving and cutting, and only has us overload our engine for a little bit. And this is the one you see me use a lot in my challenge videos, because I find it to be the most efficient. As you saw there, we overloaded, we tapped our accelerator, and we moved on, and the overload stopped. I find this to be the easiest method and the most beneficial when it comes to the timed challenges. This way you're continuing to cut, but you're not causing too much damage to your engine, and you're not wasting any seconds by slowing down or turning away from the grass. You can still continue cutting the same amount of grass, just at a slower speed. So I find this version, or this strategy, to be the most effective of the three. Of course, pick and choose however you want to do it. I do recommend kind of practicing it in the career mode, so you kind of get a hang of it. There is kind of a fourth method that people have tried, but I find it too annoying, is people have tried to only hold down the accelerator like 3/4 of the way so that your top speed never goes too high. I find that to be more troublesome and painful for the finger than it's worth. So I don't really recommend that method. Obviously, keeping a consistent speed would help you with your overloads, but generally for the expert challenges, you need to be keeping a top speed all the time, and you can't afford to go slower for the overloads. So finally, we have to talk about what to do when you leave an overload. So let's go ahead and leave a couple. I know we have already, but we're going to go ahead and leave a couple more behind here. So there you saw we left some grass behind, more than likely. Now there are two methods. Actually, we didn't. Holy cow. Okay. Let's try this again. Okay. So there are two methods that you can use to fix this if you overload. The first one is to just back up. Just back straight up over what you did. This method is useful for, again, non-timed challenges and career mode. If you want to do this, feel free. But for those of you that are going to be attempting to get the expert challenges done, what you're going to want to do is when you're making your laps and you overload, just keep track of where you did. So we'll remember when we come back around to that flower bed that we left grass there. And continue on your lap. Just continue on your lap like you normally do, going around the entire lawn and cutting, maximizing your cutting time. And just remember that when we get to this third flower bed, that's where we overloaded. And so now we need to jump out of our lap and take care of the grass that we left behind. Now there's a lot there because we've overloaded quite a bit there. But then once you're done with the grass, just jump back into your lap and continue mowing. It's very simple, very easy, allows you to continue mowing at full speed and just take care of your mistakes on your next pass. When you stop and back up and then start again, you are wasting time. There are valuable seconds there where you're not maximizing how much grass you're cutting per second. So for non-time challenges, backing up is fine. If you need to take your time and do that and be thorough on your first run around, go for it. But when it comes to the time challenges, you're going to want to learn how to just kind of tap the accelerator if you're overloading, and if you happen to leave some grass, then clean it up on your next lap around. And that's basically all there is for overloads, folks. I know there's a little bit of information here, and I hope I covered it well enough and explained it well enough for you. If I didn't, reach out to me, ask me some questions. Sometimes it can be a little difficult to get some of these strategies out in the proper terminology. So if you have any more questions about your overloads, reach out to me, and I'll do my best to answer them. But we're going to move on to the next section, which is related to overloads. So we're going to talk about the 50% grass, 75% grass, and 100% grass. And of course, there's no real good way to name that. None of that, saying that doesn't roll off the tongue, What I mean by that, and I've mentioned this in a lot of my challenges, is when you are driving around, you want to figure out how much grass you can cut with your mower while still remaining at top speed. Now, when there's hilly terrain and all that, this can vary a little bit, but generally, you're going to want to find a solid percent for you to try to get new grass into your mower. So, as you can see here, we're cutting with the right side of our mower. 50% of the new grass would be in the middle of the steering column, almost about where we're lined up right now. I would call 75% about where the steering wheel interacts or meets up with that, overlaps, with that black box on the upper left of our mower. And then 100% grass would be about where the foot pedals are, probably where the white dots on the, not the pedals, the white dots on the steps up on the left or right side of the mower. Those are probably where the blades reach underneath our mower. So if we're using from white dot to white dot, we're cutting with 100% of our blades. And as you can see, when we tried to go full speed, we immediately overloaded our mower. So we're going to try to drop down to 75%, which, as I said, is about where the steering wheel interacts with that black box. And we start at full speed, and still we're overloading our engine. So now we're going to drop down to 50%, which is right about at the middle of the steering wheel. And as you can see, while we were making our lap there, the 50% was keeping us from overloading, but we were still able to go at our top speed. We'll try it again just to show it off. Line up the grass right around the center of the column, and as you can see, we did most of that without overloading. Now, there was one section at the end there where we had some grass we had left from a previous overload, and that caused us to overload. But I recommend for every challenge jumping in, getting a feel for what you need to do before you attempt the challenge for real, and finding out how much grass you can cut at full speed without overloading your mower. It is crucial that you keep your speed up when you're doing these challenges. You need to keep your speed up, and you need to maximize the time spent cutting grass, especially for the time challenges more so than anything else. Because the time challenges at the expert level, you're going to be finishing with less than 2 minutes left. In fact, some of them I was finishing with less than a minute left. So you need to maximize your time spent mowing, which means figuring out what percentage of new grass you can cut while keeping at full speed. So, like I said, I highly recommend jumping into a challenge first and just figuring that out. Now, on the amateur level, you probably don't have to worry about that very much. The amateur challenges are very forgiving. Some of the early professional challenges are quite forgiving as well. The one we're in right now is actually the last professional challenge, and it is a bit of a challenge. It took me a while to figure out that 50% is the correct percent to try to cut grass at without overloading our engine. And if you've been watching me drive around here at about 50%, you've noticed we haven't really overloaded our engine much, but have been able to continue driving around without having to stop and start. That's what I mean when I say try to cut 50% grass, 75% grass, 100% grass. I use that terminology quite a bit throughout my challenges. So, again, if you have questions about this, feel free to reach out to me. I'll always do my best to answer questions. And we are going to move into the next section of the Tips and Tricks Guide. Okay, folks, so we've moved on to the next section of our Tips and Tricks Guide. A bit of a simple tip, but something that is very important to keep in mind. And it's not something I touch on very often in my challenge guides, but it's very important because I tend to mow in first-person mode. The problem is that you need to be flexible with what camera you're using. So there are multiple cameras that you can use. We're in first-person mode now. We have a really far away third person, a bit of a lower third person from far away. We have a close-up third person, and then we jump back into first person mode. I highly recommend, getting used to mowing in all four views. You'll see me quite often use the overhead views like this for striping contracts. And sometimes there are certain mowers that I don't like using in first person modes, particularly for me, the Stiga mowers. So I like to mow in the lower third-person camera. But primarily, you see me use this view, the first-person mode. But the problem is, in some of the expert challenges, you're going to get into situations where you can't touch things. I don't know if you saw how much our penalty and fine meter is going down just from tapping the picnic table, but we don't have a lot of wiggle room to run into things. And if you're extremely worried about this, and there are some things in the expert challenges that literally touching them while riding the mower will fail you. You will get fined so much that it will fail your runs. It is very important to know where your mower exists in space at all times. So when we're trying to drive around these picnic tables, while the picnic tables aren't an instant fail, we still don't want to be running into them constantly. So if you're using first-person mode, switch to third-person when you're in here. It's much easier to see, where everything is and avoid running into things. I'm still running into things on purpose here. But it's much easier to see where you're going and avoid backing into things. And you're going to want to get used to that because there, as I said, some of the expert challenges have items that hitting them once will instantly fail you. So don't be afraid to change your perspective if you're in tight areas, or vice versa. If you like to mow in third person, it can be very beneficial to switch into first person mode when you're trying to go up along flower beds. First person mode can give you a better idea of where the right side of your mower is when you get close to a flower bed. So when you can edge a lot better, in my opinion, in first person mode. It's a lot easier if you're going to run with the string trimmer as well, too. We haven't done that. But I find that edging items in first-person mode is a lot easier than using third-person mode. And then if you are under trees, the third-person mode becomes useless. Even zooming in as far as you can't see anything. So you're going to want to switch to first-person mode. there are plenty of scenarios where you need to be flexible with what view you are using, and it's very important to understand which views are important for what scenarios. As I said, striping cuts, it's very important to be aware of your spatial location, so having the third-person view makes it a lot easier to do, in my opinion. Now, maybe you'll be different. Maybe you'll find that first-person mode works better for the striping contracts. That's entirely up to you, but I am making this video based on the information I've found going through the game, and I've found certain scenarios where I've had to switch out of first-person mode because I didn't know where the bandstand was on the Westwall Castle contract, that the bandstand is an instant fail if you back up into it. So switch into third-person view so you can see where the rear end of your mower is. You just have to kind of keep that stuff in mind as you're going through. And with that out of the way, we only have one more real tip and trick remaining, so I'm going to pass it on over to myself in the next segment, showing you how to deal with pointed edges on the lawn. Okay, folks, we are back with the final tip and trick of the Lawn Mowing Simulator video guide. This is how to deal with pointed edges. Now, this doesn't seem like a big thing, but on larger lawns or using smaller mowers like this can save you up to a minute or two on your cuts if you use this strategy. So what we're going to be doing is, just for an object lesson, we are going to compare how long it takes for me to mow this section with straight edges as opposed to how long it takes me to mow this lawn with rounded edges. And so we're going to start with the straight edges. I'm not going to show you every second of doing this, don't worry, but I did want to point out what we're doing, and then I will rejoin you when we finished. So let's go ahead here. So just to give you an idea of what I'm doing here is I'm cutting in straight edges. When I get to a corner, I reposition myself by backing up, and then we cut along the corner straight edge again. We're basically doing straight edges across the entire lawn. This requires us to, go forward, then back up and turn ourselves, and then start driving in a straight line again. What we're going to be doing for the other version of this is we're going to be rounding off the edges. So when we get to these corners, we don't have to stop and start. We can turn and cut in one smooth motion. And now this is going to take a little more prep time than just cutting it straight like this does. But in the long run, we're not going to be stopping on every corner to reposition ourselves, and it should save us a significant amount of time. So just to put this in perspective, I know I should have paused it again, and I didn't remember to, so you're just going to stick with me until I'm done. We're at almost 5 minutes since I started here. We're at 4:55. I have a stopwatch going on my phone. So it's probably going to take us 5.5 minutes to get this done, if not 6. Probably 5.5. Now, again, this is just an estimate. This obviously there are some factors that really can't be accounted for, but this will give us a good idea of how long it takes. We'll drive across this last section. That's everything cut. It took us 5 minutes and 32 seconds. So what I'm going to do is I will be right back with a fresh section of this lawn to cut. And we're back, folks. We're going to go ahead and start our other method here. So I'm just going to start this right off the bat. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to attempt to round off the edges here. And as I said, this is going to be more prep time than any of the other method, but it should allow us to have continuous cuts around the edges. So as you can see here, we just kind of come into the corner with a smooth edge. And we're going to do the same thing here. And with that done, we're going to start cutting. And now we're continuing to cut without having to stop and start on each corner. And we'll just see how much time that saves us. Eventually it won't matter. The smaller the plot of grass you have to cut as compared to how wide your mower can cut, eventually the benefit of this method is negligible. You eventually, have to turn, stop and start and turn when you get down to the very last pieces of grass. Now, I did leave a couple of pieces of grass back behind there. So I'm going to grab them on our next pass, just to be thorough here. The turning is the most difficult, but part of that is because it's a Stega mower. And I don't particularly like mowing with them, but I thought it might be the best to illustrate my point. I'm going to jump out to make sure I get that. I don't want the results to be skewed because I missed some grass, so. But see, once we get to this point, you're almost constantly turning, and by this point, it's kind of a wash. Once we get to the real center, you're going to have to stop and start no matter what. Now, granted, we're There are still a few pieces of grass left around here that we missed, but we just hit the 4 minute and 30-second mark. So we completed this entire section a minute faster than we did by using these sharp corners. So I highly recommend paying attention to this as you are going throughout your challenges. If you are, for example, edging flower beds that are in the middle of a lawn and you leave pointed edges behind, take the time to round them out, especially if you're in large lawns and using smaller mowers. It will save you so much time to not have to, stop and start. Sorry about that. There was a bit of an audio issue. It'll save you so much time to not have to stop and start while you're mowing. Being able to just keep the accelerator on continuously and turn is so much better than those straight lines and having to do those straight lines on every single turn. Now, granted, the reality is you're probably going to be somewhere in between the two methods. It does feel good to just do everything in a rectangle sometimes. But when you are doing the timed challenges, this is very important to remember. Being able to curve those edges or make those edges curved instead of having to stop and start on every lap is very important. And I'm going to go and give you one more example of this in one of the well, it's a professional challenge, but the very last one. Okay, folks, welcome back. We've set up this challenge here to kind of point out what I mean about the pointy bit. So we're going to jump over into this tree, and we're going to edge this section. We haven't done anything with the string trimmer, so we have to get a little bit closer than we normally would. But what I like to do when I edge these is I like to do a second pass along the outside, and then a third one if we have the room for it. And what you see is that we left this kind of section in the middle. And if we make our lap around here, you'll notice we leave a pointy bit behind. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue all the way around on our lap. And I'm just going to show you why the pointy bit is a problem again. When we get all the way around here, on this end there's no pointy bit. We can just keep driving all the way around. But when we get over here, we have to go and turn to the left and then back up and reposition ourselves and keep driving. And we just made another little pointy bit. So what we want to do is run over here and just kind of make an angled edge so that when we come around the next time, we don't have to stop. We can just slightly turn and continue moving at close to full speed around that edge. And while the effect isn't going to be as noticeable in your time frame as the experiment we just showed off, the effect is there. It saves you precious seconds on your cut of not having to stop and start and reposition, etc. Now, obviously, there are hundreds of different scenarios where these pointy edges could pop up while you're cutting. Generally, they show up when you jump out of the lawn, like we do here, to work on a flower bed. As I said, I like to try to do 2 laps, and I did a third for the sake of, showing off what I meant. But we get kind of that third lap, and then we have pointy bits left. And once again, once you get done with the pointy bit, you kind of want to round off the edge, so when on our next lap, we can just drive around without having to stop. Now, again, as I mentioned in the experiment, the less grass you have remaining, the less effective that method is. We probably only have like one more lap of that area before the grass is too compact for us to mow it without turning and stopping and starting. So once we get over here, we have only one real chance at turning, and we still barely manage to do it. So you need to kind of keep in mind how much grass you have left to mow in that section when you attempt to do this, and if it's really worth it. And unfortunately, because everyone has a different method of cutting, I can't really make that decision for you. I can point out times when it might be useful. In fact, sometimes the expert challenges are more difficult for this because the decks of the mowers you're using are so wide. Most of the lawns, you don't take very many laps to mow everything. So it's the difference, as I said, is not going to be as noticeable as that experiment where it saved us basically an entire minute. It might only save you 5 or 10 seconds, but on the expert level, I've completed challenges with less than 10 seconds left. So it could be the difference. Learning when to, round off your edges could be the difference between finishing a challenge and failing. So again, if you have any questions or comments about that, reach out to me and I'll do my best to answer it. I can't say I've ever been or had a lot of practice at being a teacher, so hopefully the way I have presented these allow some of you to understand what I mean when I say, cut at 75% new grass, or use the tap method to avoid overloads. I really hope that the information I've put into this video helps some of you get better at this and use some of these strategies so you can complete the game, because I really enjoyed this. And I enjoyed the fact that they put some more challenging bits in so I could, test myself. So again, I've said this for most of the individual strategies, but if you have any questions about any of the tips or tricks in this video, if you have questions about any of the challenges or any of the things I post on my channel, leave me a comment, reach out to me. I'm always willing to help out. That's why I make the guides. So hopefully this has helped you in some capacity. If it did, let me know. Like, comment, share, all that fun stuff. And I hope to see you in some of my future videos.